No price talk and no Lambos. This is not another crypto podcast. Welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Jillian, and each week we will be looking at the problems solved by blockchain. I'll be going deep with the people building the apps and communities which are changing the world around us.
Well, hello and welcome to Ignition, the podcast from EOS Dublin with me, Jillian. Today, my guest is Mr. Alejandro Gutierrez, who is the Chief Strategy Officer from Consol. Did I get your name right, Alejandro?
Yeah, Jillian, actually, that was really good. Really impressed.
Before I pressed record, I was practicing a few times, getting worse all the time. So welcome to the podcast. Your beautiful name, and where does your name hail from? Where do you hail from?
Yeah, I'm originally Colombian.
Colombian, beautiful. But you're living in Ireland.
Living in Ireland at the moment, after spending 11 years in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Well, welcome to this country. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about your background. You've you were educated in Australia, and you've quite a varied and experienced background. Maybe tell us a bit about what you've done.
Definitely. So I'm an engineer by trade and a production engineer. And from there, actually, I started to develop a passion on supply chain and logistics. So back home in Colombia, I worked in a couple of freight forwarders, and then I took the decision to actually study a little bit further that. I did master's degrees in Australia in supply chain management. And from there, actually, I got called to the dark side, that is consulting. So I did...
the dark side.
The dark side, yes. So the good thing actually was that I managed to enhance all the capabilities from the supply chain point of view. And it gave me a great exposure actually to a lot of industries and a lot of business models, right?
Yes.
From there, I moved back into the industry, keep working on supply chain. And then I came into Ireland. I had a stint with the guys from the Happy Pair. So I was working
very famous cooks, chefs, and cafe and vegans. Very famous vegans, I suppose.
Indeed, and they have so it was interesting because it was just putting a little bit of the business sense into the whole sustainability point of view for them, and just structure a little bit better the supply chain. So now. Working with Consol Freight.
And explain, what does Consol Freight do?
Yeah, so Consol Freight, we are a technology solutions company that is focusing on freight forwarders. And what we're trying to do actually is just kind of crack the digital gap in the freight forward and transport industry. So mention is an industry that is pretty backwards in regards to technology. So we saw an opportunity on it. We are trying just to capitalize on that.
Could you explain to our listeners, what does a freight forwarder do?
Yeah, basically a freight forwarder is kind of intermediary between the shipper and the real carrier of the cargo. So it's the person that actually takes charge of doing the whole admin component for the shipper, right? So it's fairly used in companies that don't have the capability. And also they don't have the money to just have a big, let's say, exportation team or importation team. So that's pretty much, you have these agents that are helping you all the way to be able to do your whole international logistics process.
And you were saying that this is an industry that's very, well, it's not tech savvy at all. They're all Luddites by the sound of things.
Indeed. So usually in the freight forwarding and transport industry, unless you are a big boy, you wouldn't have much exposure or actually the capital to fund projects related to technology. This industry is an industry that has a lot of manual processes and a lot of paper-based processes still. So a good one to mention would be the bill of lading. That is kind of the most important document for international logistics. It's a document that has been pretty much unchanged for 600 years.
600 years. They haven't moved forward. Yeah. That's mad. Yeah. There's very few, maybe except in the legal profession. What other profession has not moved in 600 years?
I think the only one the only example that I can think about that is as old as this one would be probably the passport or the concept of a passport.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
That is from the last time I was reading, and it's something from the 1200s or something like that.
That's
But
mad.
yeah, it's mad. I couldn't come with many more examples.
So it's interesting that an industry has not moved forward like that bill of lading in 600 years. So your company, you said Consol Freight. You didn't call it like a freight forwarding company. You called it a technology solutions company, which is interesting. And part of the solutions is you're looking at blockchain. So when did you first come across blockchain?
I came across blockchain actually in my time in Australia. When I was a consultant, one of the first things that when you were sitting down with supply chain directors or with logistics managers, I would say 90% of them, they will come with the biggest issue to be a lack of visibility, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't have any transparency. And after after blockchain actually came along, so one of the things that blockchain will provide is visibility. So straight away you will say like, okay, if you can apply these into supply chains, you will have visibility, which means that you will be able to solve a big chunk of the problems of the businesses at the moment, right? So now if we translate that into the freight forwarding industry, it will be similar. Because what happened with the international logistics and freight forward process is that you have a lot of entities touching the cargo at some point.
I think it's up to 15 different
up to 50 sometimes in a Trans-Pacific. Yeah, exactly. It's mad. In a Trans-Pacific, when you have 50 people touching cargo at some point, you might have a notion of where things are, but you are not really having a certainty of where the cargo could be or what is happening to the cargo. So it's kind of leap of faith what you have in this industry.
And with the freight forwarding, just taking a step back, is it mostly shipping or is it air as well, or donkey?
Yeah, so it's a bit of you have air, you have ocean, you have road, you have multimodal. That would be a combination of all of them. You have rail as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically it's just the function of transporting goods across the whole world, you can call it.
Which is mad. So with blockchain, one of the first things you're saying is transparency. It will offer transparency, not only where your cargo is, but that it hasn't been tampered with maybe, or it's also, I think you've said before in other talks that using IoTs, that the temperature is the same, the weight is the same. There's things you can actually monitor on the actual cargo, not only where it is, but how it is.
Indeed. So there are a couple of points that on how blockchain will impact the international logistics business. One is trust, because there is something that this business is lacking or this industry is lacking is trust. There is nobody trusts each other, and blockchain actually can provide solutions for it, because you on time you will be able actually to kind of build some reputation that can be shared with the people in the industry, and that's something that will be highly desirable for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other component is like a fraud, for example. In maritime logistics, 40% of the fraud actually is coming from forging documentation, right? So yeah, it's an incredible stat. But for example, with blockchain now, you have immutability of data. What is going to happen is that probably a big chunk of that 40% is going to be solved, right?
Yeah.
You are just loading documentation into blockchain. You are not going to be able actually just to tamper documents that is happening right now.
So transparency, provenance, getting over fraud. It's also helpful, am I right, in the actual financing of the transfer of goods?
Indeed. And that's something that from, as we see it in Consol Freight, the idea for us is actually just kind of disrupt the whole freight forwarding industry, just giving a more prominent presence to the freight forwarders. And what we're going to allow them to do is this: if you have a provenance, if you have custody of the cargo, right, and you have some ownership of it, what you're going to be able to do is actually just allow freight forwarders to knock on doors of their customers to offer finance. So when a freight forwarder is going to their customers offering finance, the whole industry is going to be disrupted, because a freight forwarder right now is a way more strategic partner that is not just actually in charge of providing quotes or rates, but it's also the ones that are going to be enabling the whole trading in the industry, and that will set a big disruption, right?
And it's interesting too as well, because currently most freight forwarders, I think, in the industry would not be happy with the service that banks give them or the lack of service and the cost. So this would be a way to disrupt things, to bring down the cost and to give a better service to the end clients.
Indeed. That's a very interesting point, because if there is someone that knows pretty well the industry and would be able to minimize the risk of lending money, would be the freight forwarders, right? Especially because there are freight forwarders that have been just dealing with the same customers for the last 20 or 30 years, right? Yeah. So when you have the banks that are entities that they're not really involved into the trading, they're backing up an operation, not actually on the collateral that is being sent, but it's more actually on the reputation of people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that reputation can be tainted. However, the collateral that you have is a solid collateral that you'll be able actually to put money on. And the other component is letter of credit is a tedious process, is expensive, and it's a really slow process.
Because I think it could take like up to 3 or 4 weeks, can't it, to do the credits, or longer maybe?
Longer sometimes. And the big issue that you have with letters of credit is that every single mistake that is made or any change that is made is going to cost you money.
Yeah, it's scandalous, really scandalous. So this is a way of really disrupting things. So tell me, Alejandro, you're looking at blockchain. Is there any particular blockchain? We're on the EOS podcast. Nudge, nudge. Are you looking at EOS perhaps as an option?
Yes, indeed. EOS is one of the different protocols that we are assessing at the moment. Mm-hmm. EOS has a fantastic technology that I think applies really well for the B2B world. And actually, it differentiates because smart contracts are one of the things that for us is going to be critical. Uh-huh. One is to code, but not just that, is more flexible than some other protocols, right? Wow. And when you have as well the support of the guys from EOS, local, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Right? That does, because actually I was at the EOS podcast here, but EOS Dublin, you know them very well. It makes a big difference actually knowing the person who you're working with, who's a block producer. And they're also launching the Europe chain, which is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a governed GDPR compliant, AML5 compliant chain. So knowing the people who are creating the blocks is a huge differential, I think, isn't it? Then I'm not liking Bitcoin, but in terms of working with a blockchain, it's very powerful to actually know the people.
No, it is. I think it provides a whole new level, especially from the confidence that it will bring to you, right? As I always say, businesses are made by people. They are not made by companies. At the end of the day,
that's very
true. People are the ones who are taking the decisions.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Wow.
Exactly. That's where we are at the moment.
Well, I have to say thank you very much for your time today, Alejandro. I'm glad you're in Ireland. I'm sorry you're missing the sunshine of both Colombia and Australia. I'm hoping you bring the sunshine this summer. But thank you very much for your time indeed. And if
thank you very much.
Find you and look for your project, where will they find you?
Indeed. No, thanks very much, Jillian, for the invite. I think it's fantastic to have these spaces actually, and being able to just communicate to people that are involved and that are interested in blockchain as well.
Perfect. And where can people find you online?
Online, you can find us at www.consolfreight.com.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much again for your time, Alejandro, and we will chat with you soon.
No worries, Jill.